Okay, so tonight's homework is on science fiction, or what is science fiction, a little bit more in-depth piece on science fiction tonight. At the end of the presentation, you'll understand the key elements, the purpose, themes, conflicts you'll see in science fiction, as well as foreshadowing. So let's go ahead and get started. In your whisk, don't forget, anytime you see the little pencil, I would like for you to write down your notes. All right, so what is science fiction? Basically, can you imagine what life on Earth would be like 100, 1,000, even a million years from today? Will people still look like people? Will we walk and talk as we do now? Or will we somehow use our thoughts to transport us to different destinations? Or maybe our bodies won't take food the way they normally would. Maybe we start using energy from the sun like plants do. All of these ideas are things that writers of science fiction consider when they start telling tales of the future. So it's often imaginative writing with a scientific base, and it's ideas that could happen. So we want to think about things like space travel, alien beings, technology, scientific experiments, or maybe even a futuristic society. So some common machines and tools that we are using today, like airplanes, cell phones, some of those were first described in earlier science fiction stories. So that's kind of cool. So some of the key elements of science fiction are basically realistic and fantastic details. It should be, again, grounded in science. It's generally set in the future. And usually some unknown inventions that could become a reality. So it really explores the settings, events, and characters that are both familiar and out of the ordinary. It's usually a surprising combination that sheds new light on everyday occurrences and starts kind of making us think about new ideas and thought processes. Science fiction is generally, again, set in the future, involves technology and science, and really is a way for the writer to make a serious comment about the world around them. And it oftentimes will give us suggestions that might even kind of reach beyond our own imagination of what could happen in this lifetime. So, some of the themes that you might see in science fiction, and again, theme is a central message or idea of a piece of writing. Generally, it's never directly stated. The reader usually has to try and figure it out from the details in the story. And these details could be included in the title, in the description of the characters, in the setting, maybe even hidden within the plot. In science fiction, there may be a message in the story about the dangers of technology or about what happens to characters who live in futuristic settings. And generally, a theme in sci-fi will often apply to life as we know it, but since the story is set in the future or the characters are kind of strange and unusual, it generally makes this comment on life as we know it more vivid and memorable for the reader. So foreshadowing in science fiction is a technique that, well, foreshadowing in general is a technique that writers use to give us clues and hints on what's coming in the story. It's generally used to set the mood, create suspense, and give tone or communicate the attitude towards the subject or the material that they're writing about. It's basically a writer's use of clues or hints about the things to come in the story, though, and the suspense and the mood that the writer builds through foreshadowing that helps keep the readers interested. I don't know about you, but this is one of my favorite genres of writing. I love to read science fiction. Generally, conflict in science fiction is a story in the story are clues to the theme, and some of those conflicts might be internal, where they're inside the character or taking place within the character, and then some can be external. That could be like an outside force on the character itself. And generally, a theme in science fiction, again, will apply to life as we know it, and this helps make it really memorable for the reader, just again to reiterate that. So at this point, you're now finished with tonight's homework. Please remember to go back into your whisk and do your summary and your question. And my expectations for the summary are 3 or more sentences, that have at least one topic and a couple of sentences of detail on what tonight's homework was really about. And then expectations for the question, I really want you to use the HOT question starters, the higher order thinking question starters. You glued this into your journal. So if you don't have your journal with you, then please see one of the folders on Edmodo. I think it's the WISC folder, if you don't have those question starters with you. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow in class.